Everyone, Paula Crider here, and welcome to the November edition of the Concert Artistry Series. And tonight we feature Robert Herrings. You know, the whole purpose of this series is to feature people who have fantastic programs and climb inside their minds and learn something from them. And I should mention that we're recording this tonight instead of live tomorrow night as was originally planned, so that on Wednesday, Robert can support his high school that he feeds. They've been selected to go on to the state marching contest, which is a pretty big deal here in Texas. And they're doing an exhibition for the parents tomorrow night. So Robert, I'm glad we could switch this around. And Robert he looks like he's still a teenager, but believe it or not, he's in his 17th year of teaching. And in those 17 years, his bands have earned the high honor of performing at the Midwest Conference, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And this December will mark their 4th appearance. And this is an incredible accomplishment for someone, even twice his age. As a matter of fact, I went back and looked, we celebrated our 75th year last year, trying to find out how many bands had actually, with the same director, performed 4 times at the Midwest Convention. And I couldn't find any. So Robert, I may have missed it, but that's kudos to you, quite an accomplishment. And gang, if you've ever seen Robert work, you know that the energy that he brings to every rehearsal is contagious, and also his pedagogical knowledge supports everything that he does. So, tonight is about, okay, Robert, how do you do it? And I'd like you to start, if you would, by giving our listeners just a brief overview of your program, the number of bands, how it's structured, how you team teach with your assistants, and just tell us how you've put together this miraculous program.
Excellent. Well, I teach there are 3 bands at Henry Middle School, and they are beginner classes, are homogeneous classes. The only classes that we do have combined are oboe, bassoon, and euphonium and tuba. Outside of that, everything else is its own class period. Each of the 3 directors on my campus, and I'm very fortunate to have 3 directors. All 3 of us have beginner classes that we teach on a daily basis. And then I do this thing in the 6th grade year where we rotate. So each 6 weeks, we rotate through the beginner classes because we're all human and we all miss things. And so what that does is it gives us the opportunity to go into each other's classes and hear what's really good and see the things that we think need improvement. And really, for me, it's a great way for me to help my younger teachers that I have, because as you know, they are continuing to learn, and it's a continuous improvement thing, and I'm always learning. But that way, we have kind of like a check and balance on each other, so that we can ensure that all of the kids come out on the back half of the year in the same place, or as close to the same place as possible. During our 3 bands, each of us have a role within each of the band classes, and we kind of talk right before each class period what we would like each of the directors to do. I'm very good, especially on, depending on what piece of music we're on, I'll look at them and say, okay, you're listening to woodwinds, you're going to listen to brass, and I'm going to tackle the percussion, just because there's so much going on in a rehearsal sometime. You can't hear it all when it's all coming at you at the podium. Especially this is really great with our younger directors, because someone like myself who's had a little bit more experience than my 3rd-year teacher, it gives me the opportunity to help me grow his ears, because there are things that he may miss or may not hear, and then we can talk about them and point them out. And it's never a situation that is negative in any way, and we never make the other director in front of the kids feel like that they're being degraded or anything like that. All the kids know that every band director teaches every band, and that's how we sell it on our campus. And yes, while I may be the primary director of the honors band, the kids understand that all 3 band directors teach in that band class every single day. So it's really special, and it's really special is just the right word. I feel like I set up a little music school there, as I call it. But yes, that's kind of how we structure the program at Henry Middle School.
That's fantastic. And I know you're a firm believer in starting beginners correctly. Talk a little bit about your beginning program.
Our beginning band is very slow. And I think when people come in the fall, they leave a little underwhelmed, is what I always say. They come in and they think, well, I'll ask them like, well, how are your classes? And they go, we're online, whatever in the book. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. And I always go, what do they sound like? I'm a very big proponent in the beginning of the year of setting the kids up correctly. And I do feel like that if you go slow in the beginning, because let's be real, in December, when mom and dad show up to the concert, they just want to be able to hear Jingle Bells or, Jolly Old St. Nicholas. And they know, yes, what sounds good and what sounds bad. But when it's a beginner parent and it's their first year, they have really no expectation demonstration of what it should sound like in the or at the December concert. That being said, we move very slow and we teach very methodically, and we do use the book because kids have to play tunes, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Hot Cross Buns. You got to keep them engaged that way. But we really spend a lot of time on the fundamental aspect of playing the instruments, and we just make it really fun, and we make really games out of everything, like games out of posture and foot tap and all the things that people would say to me in the past, I think my kids will quit because they will find that boring. Well, if you turn all of those things into things that will be fun for children, then they will respond to you and they don't know any different. And that's also what I tell younger teachers that come to me too. Remember, beginners don't have any expectation of what their class is going to be like because it's their first year of teaching or their first year of playing an instrument. So because of that, go into it and teach with priorities. And then in the spring semester, we can hit the ground and we accelerate really fast in the spring semester. But we can do that because we've set the kids up for success in the fall.
Can you give an example of something that you make fun for your beginners?
Well, we do. I know this is going to sound crazy, but we do the technique drill, where we call it Speed Demon Award. And as we're working up the students and getting them to build their technique and develop, even in the beginner year on 5 notes, we do the Speed Demon Award where we go click it up just a little bit, and they're never going like 120 or 150 at the very end, but they think it's really cool to practice their Clark study on 5 notes, because they want to win the Speed Demon Award. Well, every test we have, even within Speed Demon, we also give an award for the best foot tap, the best posture, the best hand position, the best tone quality. And I think all of those little pieces or all of those fundamental aspects of playing the instrument can really be rewarded, and the students will really take it to heart, where they don't look at it as something like, oh, the band director's just being fussy about my foot tap or being fussy about this, but they look at it as like, this is a goal because they're trying to win an award. And I always try to find something for every kid, even the last chair kid, to reward them for something. And I'm a big proponent on teach the whole child and teach every kid in your class. And a lot of people will give up on the bottom of their classes, and that's really sad, because all kids deserve to learn and all kids deserve to have a great teacher. And so while someone's journey may be faster than another student's, it doesn't mean that they won't get it in the end. And I always tell my high school directors too, and they're great, remember the third band kids are going to be the ones that are going to sign up for band because they don't have all the other opportunities and avenues that maybe some of the kids who are in the top band have. So yeah, those are kind of some of the things that we do in 6th grade, and I love it. And they will do anything for stickers.
Well, and that's great. And I'm so glad to hear you talk about not just teaching to the top of the section or the top kids, because, well, some people learn that early on and some of them never do. So looking back at those first years of teaching, what did you find to be the most difficult? If you could talk to the Robert back then, what would you tell him?
Well, the first thing, and I think I made this mistake, the first probably 2 years of my teaching, it was not always about kids, it was about myself. And I had to realize that when you extract yourself and put the kids first, then you start having success. And so that was one of the biggest things for me. The other thing was relationships. And I'm not talking about just relationships with the kids. I mean, relationships with everyone in the school. I think it's very easy for us to get trapped in our band halls and our band rooms and not get out and build those relationships with other teachers and the administration and those kind of things. And so for me, it was really hard for so long to get outside of the band hall. But once I got out, I started building stronger relationships with the entire campus, including my athletics department. And I think, one of the things I do really well on my campus is scheduling. And I am very adamant that students in middle school should have the opportunity to do as many things as they can because they're middle school kids. They're coming in, they're trying football for the first time and dance team and cheer and all of the things, band, and let's give them the opportunity to find their niche. Now on the flip side of that coin, I always just go, I'll make my class more fun and they'll want to stay with me, but we want to provide them with so many opportunities as we can. So the scheduling piece was kind of tough at the very beginning because I used to really believe that like, oh my God, if this kid misses 15 minutes of sectionals to go to be late from football, then the whole section's going to crater. And at the end of the day, working with kids, when you start giving, they start giving back. And so it really does. That was really eye-opening for me. And I think the last biggest thing that I learned was it's not a private lesson in a beginner class. And I would get bogged down trying to help one kid. And then as I went through the year, that first year, I realized, like, oh my goodness, I didn't spend enough time teaching everyone. I got so bogged down with kids in the class period that it would take away from the actual overall structure of the class. So that being said, learning to teach the whole while still hearing kids individually and giving kids individual feedback was a big milestone for me as I grew in my teaching.
Bravo, bravo. So, how has COVID affected your program, and what have you done to overcome it? Because I hear that from everyone.
Well, during the COVID time, I was one of those band directors that would refuse to allow the COVID to not let us make learning of some sort fun. And so we did a lot, as much as we could online. And I will be honest, I made it all up as I went along. And I talked to many band directors throughout time, and we would collaborate, and someone would share something with me that they came up with, and I was doing the same thing, But during COVID, we just wanted them to still, when they logged into our class, to be excited about sitting down in their chair. If they were going to skip math because they were at home, I wanted them not to skip my class because they knew it was going to be exciting and they were going to learn a lot. After that, we came back that next year, and it was just kind of getting kids back into the swing of like being in school, and kind of, you had to be really careful with like your expectation. We still had them, but we had to modify just to meet the kids where they were. And I think so many of us kind of went into it. Other band directors went in, my kids are behind, my kids are behind. It's like, well, behind what? Because there is no curve for COVID. So meet the kids where they are and teach them up. So that was kind of what we did. It was like, let's get our eighth graders to the high school. Let's do take our seventh graders and bridge the gap as much as we can. And then with our sixth graders, that was quote normal, right? So we look at your sixth graders, that's your normalcy, and then deal with the other two grade levels in the manner in which you need to deal with them to get them to the next level. That being said, here we are now, where I have a band that, as you said, playing at Midwest this year, and there are a lot of kids that were on Zoom their sixth grade year. I take my clarinet section, for instance, and that was probably the hardest section for me, honestly, because clarinet and trombone were really hard to teach on Zoom, and a lot of kids were bummed. Clarinet is tough when you don't have that cheerleader standing in front of you every day giving you the thumbs up or fixing your problem or adjusting the A key or whatever the case may be. It was really tough. And so now that we're back, the kids are closer to where they were before COVID, but we just keep teaching them up, and I just keep going. It's a journey, and we're just going to keep going. And and our sixth graders and our seventh graders are doing a great job, and so we just keep teaching. And I try not to let myself get bummed out when like, I don't think my band articulates as well as they normally articulate. But I also think, Robert, you taught them articulation that first year of teaching, which is so important, crucial. It was all on the computer, so, you just have to, accept what you can change and continue to develop and change the things that you see in front of you. But don't think that you're behind. Just keep teaching, and find enjoyment in the small successes. And I think if you can recognize the small successes, it makes everything else greater in the end.
Well, and I think too, and I hope everybody watching is struck by this, is that you're not using COVID as an excuse. But
No.
you just take them where they are and keep on taking them to the next level. And speaking of that next level, the level of difficulty of your music, if I were listening to your band, and of course I have listened to tapes of your band, I wouldn't know it was not a high school band if I didn't know it was a really good middle school band. And so how do you structure your rehearsals to introduce and to gradually get the kids to play more challenging music? And how do you motivate them to practice? And do you use grading as a motivator? How do you take them from point A to point Z as you have between their sixth and their eighth grade years?
I think the biggest thing is I use our non-varsity bands are definitely our teaching bands, and we utilize those to really develop the fundamental skills. Even in the top band, yes, we're developing them, but in our non-varsity bands, we start slower, and all bands on the campus do the exact same warm-up routines, and we all do the same technical things. It's technical exercises. It's just developed differently and structured differently in each of the classes so that we meet the kids where they are and get them where they need to be. With my top band, I'm a big proponent of planning backwards. So I kind of sit around and think about what I know my strengths are and how can I challenge what I have that's a strength, but also how can I challenge yet grow the weaknesses that I have within my ensemble. And so I start thinking about those things. And then I think about what are the skills, because I literally live with these scores. What are the skills that the students students need to be able to play this music at a high level. And then I plan backwards throughout the year. Now, somebody might come to you and say, so you only teach the fundamental skills that you think they need to play the music? Well, yes, but no. I'm a very big proponent on teaching all fundamental skills of playing any instrument. And that's developing, I have 5 big priorities that I teach with, and that's tonal development. I think that is number 1, articulation. I believe if you can't articulate well, then you don't really make a good tone quality, and tone and airspeed drives articulation. And when you have great air and a good embouchure, it gives you a good tone. It all works together. A rhythmic understanding. I think sometimes people forget that the rhythmic understanding of playing music is so important. And if kids don't understand rhythm or even have rhythm, that can really be a challenge. And then of course I like, the technical side of things, what technical facilities do they need to be able to play the music that we play? But I also teach technique through scale patterns and Clark studies like crazy. And again, it's really fun, and scales. And I know people go, everybody always talks about scales. Well, if you make scales fun, and we talk about to our kids, the most musical thing that you should ever play is a scale. Like when someone hears you play, it should just be as beautiful as possible, because that is where you get to play the range of your instrument and where we work on sounding the same in both registers of the horn with great articulation and great style and where to put the vibrato and all the things. But you do it on small little things before you put it into the whole. I'm also a big proponent of arpeggios. I think it's really important for kids to play arpeggios. I think it's really important for them to play, pentascales and triads and, all of the things. And we just build them into the curriculum. I actually do a key a week at the beginning of the year. And so, and then we get through the first 8 keys that they will see in their first audition, so the district band music. And then from there, we come back, and then usually in November, so starting at here, because we just finished 2 weeks ago with the auditions. So in November, we just started today, the last 4 keys that we will be playing in. And then we just keep growing. And these are the keys that are the more challenging ones, but we make them really fun and really exciting. I take a little bit more time with them so that the kids don't feel like it's so challenging and so out of their reach that they can't do it. Then from there, when it comes to music and rehearsing the big stuff in class, I do not do anything in class that I have not worked on in a small group sectional or a pullout of my own. I don't want to waste any of our class time. I believe that when kids are seated in front of you in a group, they should be playing. Now, there are going to be times where you have to stop and fix a note here, fix a style there. That's different, but it should not be a sectional during the class period. So I structure my rehearsals so that everything that we are going to do in the rehearsal has been covered in the sectional, or at least 90% of it has been covered, and anything that hasn't been covered is something that's attainable, and we should be able to get it in class. I also give my kids the weekly outline on Friday of everything that we're going to play in class the next week. So it does take planning on my end, and I do believe that planning is huge, and a lot of people do not plan. They walk out of their office with their scores for rehearsal, and they step on the podium, and I don't know how they do that. I just don't know.
I call that the fireman approach. You wait for something to go wrong and try to put fire out. Yeah.
It's crazy. And so from there, what I normally do is, the kids know exactly, because I do believe that kids practice, but I also believe that if there are 3 pieces of music that the students are working on, they may practice the march tonight and you're going to work on the lyrical tune in class, but they didn't know that you were going to work on the lyrical tune. So they practice something else, right? So the more that you can give the kids to help them, and I'm very specific, like we're going to rehearse measures 13 to 51, and then if you don't have something in that section, then you should be looking at these types of things. I also start the technique, and we will skip, like, let's say that we're working on tempos, but there's technique in the woodwinds. We will have the woodwinds not play when they get to that section and they finger along, because the rest of the band is ready to go a little bit faster. And then we stop, slow the tempo down, work with the clarinets and the woodwinds, and then we say, okay, we'll keep working on it. But I'm very specific about how I want them to practice it. And I give them very detailed, and we celebrate, all of the things. Do we motivate them with grades? I don't think, if I'm being completely honest, and this is going to be really shocking. Number one, I do very little playing grades. Believe it or not, like I just teach and motivate them and inspire them to want to go home and get better. And we talk about, I try to brainwash the kids when they're a beginner about just, why would you not be in love with playing your flute? Like, flute is the most amazing thing in the world, And so I want them to have that feeling, so they go home and they do that work. And I also our kids are very big on, we play a lot of music music when they come in the room. So the kids are used to hearing things like Holst when they come in, or hearing, Beethoven, or, it changes all the time. In the beginner classes, they're hearing, Joe Alessi playing trombone when they walk into the trombone class, so they kind of get used to that music and they start thinking it's really exciting. And then they want to hear, what piece is that? And they have it on their, their AirPod, or they have it on their, and I love that, and it's like, those are the kind of things that motivates, I think, the kids to want to continue to work hard because they want to play that really fun music and do the things. But I think the planning piece of it is really important, and helping kids understand how to achieve the technique. I think a lot of times people will give their students music and set them free on it, but they haven't really given them the tools to be successful on that. And I think teaching kids how to practice is something that you start doing in sixth grade, or in the beginner year, whatever year that is. And then it just develops and continues to be bigger and more as they go on into the seventh and eighth grade year. So that's kind of how we, achieve the goals. And I'm Cindy Lansford is a clinician that comes out to my campus, and she will laugh all the time and go, are you going to go faster ever? And I'm like, yes, I will, but I usually go really slow for a long time. And then all of a sudden I just can turn the metronome up and we're ready to go, but we take our time. We don't rush it.
Going slow is a faster way to learn, right? Well, Robert, we're almost out of time, and I think everybody will agree. We could listen to you talk and talk and talk, but one of the things that comes through just so clear is that you're structured, you have plans, and it's not a day to day, but it's a month to month, year to year. And I want to stress that because we don't have time to talk about this, but one of the questions I asked Robert when we talked about this interview was how many kids study privately, because I know people are going to hear your band at Midwest and say, oh, everybody in that band takes a private lesson, and they don't.
They do not, no.
No, and it all gets down to my friends who are watching, and this. And the thing is, the people that are watching are probably not the people that really need to hear what you have to say. But nonetheless, the person on the podium makes all the difference in the world. You could be in the richest school district or the poorest school district, and you're somewhere in between, aren't you, with your kids?
Yeah, we've shifted a little bit.
I'm sorry. And so last thing before we have to cut this off, if you could give some advice to young and not so young teachers, what would it be?
I think there are, the first thing I would say is ask questions. We go to college and we learn all this great information, but even student teaching doesn't prepare you for the first year of teaching and getting in there, and that's okay. But ask questions. We're surrounded by a lot of really great teachers. One of the things that I push a lot in the profession is for people to share. I think sometimes people are worried about someone else beating them, and I think that is the craziest thing in the world. It's like we should be putting kids first, and let's share and share and share and help all the kids around us be successful. So the first thing is, don't be afraid to ask questions. The second thing I would say is mistakes are proof that you're trying, and that's okay. Learn from the mistakes. And I think sometimes people make mistakes and they either don't recognize it or they crawl under a rock because they feel so terrible about it. But it's okay. Mistakes are just proof that you are trying, and it will get better. And I think the last thing would be, get outside of the band hall. It's really easy. And I mean, with relationships, the relationship piece is so important, but get outside of the band hall and build those relationships with other people, but also get outside of the band hall and have a personal life. It's really easy to get bogged down in there sometimes, but just understand the work-life balance is important, and get out and get to know people and ask questions and build relationships. All those things are really important.
And you'll be sane when you get to be 40. That's good. So,
Yes.
I hope everyone has a chance to hear your band, if not live, then on Memorex at Midwest, because I know, Robert, it's going to be a fantastic performance. And thank you so much for sharing your time. I'm always invigorated because your energy just comes screaming through the screen, and I know why your kids love music. So that's terrific. Next time, speaking of somebody whose image comes screaming through the screen, Alfred Watkins is going to be our featured clinician. He's the famed director of the Lassiter High School Band, and he's going to talk about the importance of chamber music into a program. So again, thanks so much, my friend, and good luck to you. And listen to your own advice. Take a little time for yourself.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Bye-bye.